Hey guys, it's Lauren LaRosa, and this is another episode of Piece of the Pie, where we are having real conversations with real people about why we, Black people, people of color, are not in these rooms where our stories are being told. Now, we have talked to producers, we have talked to on-camera talent, publicists, we've done it all here at Piece of the Pie, but I am so excited to be joined by a talent agent here in Hollywood who owns her own agency. Tiana, thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Tiana Jackson. I'm a talent and literary agent headquartered in Century City, California. What's unique about me is that I am the first known Black woman with 100% ownership of her agency to become a Writers Guild of America franchise, not only in Los Angeles, but I'm the first and only franchise in Atlanta, Georgia. I started my agency after encountering racial discrimination and hair discrimination in the workplace and being unable to find entry-level employment at any talent agency in town. To date, I now operate internationally and have over 150 clients ranging from actors, producers, writers, directors, and voiceover artists.
Go off, I love it. Well, I'm so happy to have you here, so let's get into it. So in opening up your own agency, I mean, you've been doing this for some time now. And I can only imagine in 2014, just what that journey was like for you as a Black woman, you know, especially here in Hollywood with your own agency. What has it been like trying to, I guess, I don't know if prove yourself or establish your agency in Hollywood? Because I know you represent a lot of underrepresented talent in Hollywood. What has it been like just trying to get your agency's name out there and book gigs for your talent agents or your talent?
Yeah, it has not been an easy feat by any means. A few years ago, I actually conducted my own internal racial bias test to see whether or not I was being discriminated against. I found out that casting directors could pick and choose who they were sending the breakdowns to. So I actually strategically placed my top 25 clients at a few mid-level agencies, and they immediately started auditioning the next day. So I knew that something was wrong. Along the way, I've encountered various levels of harassment and discrimination, including people leaving messages at my office line, calling me the N-word. I've been referred to as a LGBT slur. I've been disregarded as small. I even had a diversity executive tell me that it was nice of my clients to stay with me considering I'm so small. So when we're talking about the trials and tribulations, I've definitely seen my fair share.
I was reading something today, and I don't think that I've ever thought of it either, but and what I was reading, it was like talking about diversity in like these different agencies. Out of like 2,000 something listed agents, only 45 of them were people of color.
The truth is, it's a lack of opportunities. I myself am a byproduct of those barriers to entry. As few as 2 or 3 years ago, I interviewed with several agencies after having 5 years under my belt building my own agency, and I was still unable to obtain even entry-level employment. So we're dealing with a system that has deliberately kept us out, including people admitting that they were told when it came to internships to only call in applicants from Ivy League schools because the theory was that they had parents that were well off that could pay their bills while they interned or worked in the mailroom.
I can't imagine you sitting through an interview and then being told, I don't know, what, you don't have enough experience after 5 years. Like, what was actually said to you? And like, I know that kind of landed you where you are with your own agency, but what was that? Like, how did that even go down?
It was fascinating because this was me coming in, learning everything hands-on day to day for the past 4 or 5 years. And so I knew how the business worked from my perspective. And ultimately, I had a lot of different experiences. The first thing I would do when I go in is take a look around and see if anybody was there that looked like me. Right. Oftentimes, there wasn't. I had an interview once at an agency to where we'll just say the creative director, if you will, is what he liked to call himself. He was so uncomfortable by my presence that he conducted the entire interview over his right shoulder, meaning he had his back to me the entire meeting and refused to look at my resume and only looked at like a 7-year-old internship that I had a really long time ago. Wow. So his nonverbal cues let me know that he just really wasn't comfortable with me being in his presence. Even his assistant was a little bit baffled because she was like, but she has the experience with these sites. Like, what are you talking about? So I just went through, the things that you go through when you're essentially overeducated and unemployable.
To me, it's just crazy how publicly there's so much happening, but everybody I talk to and that I've been talking to through Piece of the Pie privately, it seems like there's still so much to be done. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's the thing of like, are we just going to have another like group of like 10 go-to Black people that are booking everything and their agents are working, their publicists are happy, but then you have thousands and thousands and thousands of other Black creatives who are just like really in Hollywood trying to figure it out. Like it just seems like there's like 2 steps forward, but 2 steps back at the same time.
Correct. And the reason why is the consumers are the ones that are going to have to demand that. See, what happened was before we started with the Oscars So White, so then they made some changes, but then we got, like you said, the same 10 people. I talk about like the same 3 people, right? We just got Issa.
I said 10 as a stretch. I'm talking about maybe I went to YouTube as well, because honestly, it's a good 5.
Yeah, you're right. It's, when I was growing up, it was always Gabrielle Union and Morris Chestnut over and over again, right? So we're dealing with the fact that consumers are going to have to be more vocal about seeing faces and being more specific, because then they started to give us more Black faces, but then they were Black British faces, not Black American faces. We've seen that they will always find a creative way to meet your demands, but you're not paying attention to how they're doing it. We still haven't broken through this glass ceiling, if you will. It's like I'm hitting this wall and I can't quite break through. And then I'm turning to the studios for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they're not really being of assistance. So we're still trying to fight this fight and just be more vocal about the fact that we're going to need more help. We're going to need more support, and the support has to come from the consumers, because they're the ones that are essentially paying for this content to be created.
If you could speak to someone who really doesn't understand why it's important for your agency to have these allies in the suits, support from the consumer side, what would you say to them?
It's really about equal employment opportunities. It's about fairness and doing what's right. We're all raised with a certain set of morals and values and rooted in equality and fairness. And what we're telling you right now collectively as an industry, as people of color, is that there are several unfair practices that are occurring. And what's happening is that because we're competing against extreme vertical integration, we're not being deemed legitimate competitors in this industry when it comes to earning opportunities.
Right.
And a lot of that comes from people being more conscious and aware of what's going on and speaking out about it more and demanding action and change.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. This has been another episode of Piece of the Pie. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. As I mentioned before, I hope that your agency continues to thrive, and you got the support from me over here, so make sure you definitely stay in contact. And again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.